What can you tell us, and how do you remember CDF Ogolla?
Thank you very much, Aben Kitele. Indeed, it is a sad day for this country. It is a sad day for members of the KDF fraternity. It's a sad day, really, for those who have served with him. But General Ogolla, I remember him very, very well. Not just as somebody who worked together with him, but also somebody who grew up together with him. So I know him from childhood through school to the military, and until eventually he became the CDF. So I know him as a fine gentleman. Somebody who is very generous, very honest, very truthful, but also very committed and intelligent too. Yes.
Kanali, it is a very heavy day for the family, the entire military fraternity, and Kenyans at large. What is going through your collective psyche as servicemen and women?
Well, for me, remember, I can only talk about myself. I cannot talk about servicemen and women because personally I'm no longer in service. But I know they are also distraught, they are affected because General Ogolla was a fine officer, fine general, a fine CDF who, had no, favorites. He had no preferences. He treated everybody the same. So really, I can only say that I believe that the military fraternity is very, very saddened by this loss. But even us as, members of his family, because we are related, we are very saddened by this too. And it is just a painful event, a painful incident, something that really, not one would have expected at this moment in time. It's a big loss for us as a family. It was a big loss for the country and KDFers, in general.
Kenyans started to know about the late CDF, Francis Ogolla, when he was appointed Vice Chief of Defense Forces. How would you describe his leadership style as head of Kenya's military?
By the time he became the CDF, I was already out of the service. And therefore, I can only talk about that period of time when I was in the service, and he was the Air Force commander at the time. But I can talk about him as somebody who was all-embracive. He was the kind of a person who, treated everybody equal. He gave opportunity to the juniors. He listened to the seniors. He was somebody who understood the concept of, giving everybody an opportunity to, give their ideas, and then he would be able to pick the best from that. He was not the kind of a person who would pretend that he knows it all. He's one person who understood the principle of collective responsibility, the principle of, listening to everybody to give, the opinion, their views, their understanding of something, and thereafter then it can come to a consensus, and from where a decision would be made. And therefore, to me, and I trust that he was the same even when he became the CDF, in my view, that he was not the kind of a person who was sitting on an ivory tower or on a high horse and would pretend that he knows it all. He was, in my view, the kind of a person who would want to listen to every officer, listen to everybody, and thereafter, come to a decision. So it was a good, I would imagine that he was a good general and a good commander too at the CDF.
Kanali, the loss of CDF Ogolla is still very fresh on Kenyans' minds and the minds of the military fraternity and his beloved family. But as we have been reporting and earlier, power abhors vacuum. Already in military circles and at State House, I'm sure conversations are starting over the succession at the top of Kenya's military. What can you tell us about what is supposed to happen?
Indeed, in the military lingo, they would say that there can never be a blank file, right? In the political circles, people would say that power abhors a vacuum. But in the military, doctrine is that there can never be a blank file. So in such kind of circumstances, I believe that, there must be somebody who will be able to step in, maybe in an active capacity, and then, the Defense Council would probably recommend for the CDF to be able, for the Commander-in-Chief to be able to make a decision. But indeed, the Deputy or the VCDF, that is the Vice-in-Chief of Defense Forces, who would certainly be the acting CDF in the kind of situation that we are currently. But in terms of confirmation, then certainly the Defense Council would make a recommendation to the Commander-in-Chief. It doesn't follow always that it is the VCDF who must step in. It is actually the prerogative of the Commander-in-Chief to determine who steps into that office. So I may not know who will be the next CDF, but I can tell you that certainly there will be no blank file.
Kanali, there have been all sorts of permutations and conversations about the Tonje rules and the KDF Act, and is it mandatory for the president, for the Commander-in-Chief, to follow the Tonje rules?
The Tonje rules are actually not necessarily a policy framework that is in black and white. It is more or less a gentleman's agreement, but also to give every service an opportunity to produce a CDF, and that brings a balance and harmony within the military, all the military services. And only this time around, it was the Air Force, and if that gentleman's agreement is followed, then certainly the next CDF would have come or would be coming from the Navy. But still, it is up to the Commander-in-Chief to determine who can be the CDF, really. Like I said, it is not a policy framework that is legal or that is law, that it has to go in a rotational manner. It is basically a gentleman's agreement and, again, the prerogative of the Commander-in-Chief to decide who becomes the next CDF. So even though I think based on the practice that has been there, that the next CDF should be from the Kenya Navy, but because it is not written anywhere, it is just practice and gentleman's agreement, the Commander-in-Chief may decide that perhaps it goes to another service as opposed to the Navy, or even going back to the Air Force. So really, that is the position, as it were.
Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Colonel Cyrus Oguna. They are just giving us his thoughts and passing his message of condolence, and of course speaking about something that Kenyans will be already speaking about, and that is succession at the top of Kenya's military following the demise of Chief of Defense Forces General Francis Ogolla. And of course, just giving us some of the possibilities. A lot of talk has been rife about the service that is next set to take over. Is it the Tonje rules that the Commander-in-Chief will be following in terms of his next appointment? Talk about, of course, is the KDF Act. Talk about how long this succession or appointment is set to be. And of course, coming right on under the spotlight